My name is Simon Smith, and welcome to Staccato Cast, the podcast where musicians take a single track and walk us through their creative process from conception to completion. You'll hear stems, demos, and the finished article interwoven with conversation. Derek Bishop released his second album, Bicycling in Quicksand, in 2015, and it takes nods from 80s synth pop, 70s disco, and the piano-playing chops of women who rock. His indie pop grooves create a wall of sound that makes his records dense and full of sounds to explore. Derek talks to us about the track Taffy and why it came into being.
Initially, it started, I was just getting very, very frustrated with a few clients, or probably a lot of them. With the kind of advent of, email and texting and all that stuff, your normal work days aren't what they used to be. You used to could leave an office at 5 or 6 p.m. and then you would come back the next morning and continue your work. But with the way that social media has, kind of blended into work, I found that as a self-employed person working from home, during the day and then working on my music at night, I would find my clients they would text, they would email. It was nonstop. There was no way of getting away from these people. And it was really frustrating because you think that by 7 or 8 o'clock, you can be like, I'm done now. Now I can move on to other things that are more exciting, more creative. And it's like the phone would just erupt. And yes, you can turn it off. But in doing so, you're only kind of, pushing off or pushing back the crap you'll have to deal with later. So the idea of, kind of being attacked and eaten up and stretched too thin by clients had been hanging over my head for a long time. And I knew I liked the idea of Taffy because growing up, we used to go down to the beach and they would have the saltwater taffy machines that would just pull and stretch it until it would break. And then it would roll it up again and just keep doing it. And I kind of liked that idea. That felt like what I was going through. It was like a merry-go-round of stretching and pulling and twisting. So I just kind of kept that in my head for a long time, knowing with the idea. And then I kind of just sat down one day. I was like, I've got to make it happen. I had enough of it rolling around in my head for so long that it kind of spilled out pretty fast.
So just get on your way, go ahead and pull, stretch, chew me out. To you I'm only taffy in a sugar drought. 'Cause even if you're satisfied and there really is no need, there's a yearning deep inside of you 'cause all you do is feed on me.
I came up with, I think, a rhythm in my head that the lyrics went along to. Not so much a melody, but, like a cadence. And that kind of helped define, I guess, the structure of the song. I came up with the chorus pretty fast because it just, like I said, that had kind of been rolling around in my head. But I took the lyrics to another song that I had been working on. I normally find it much easier to take lyrics and write a melody around them. But I'd been working on the new album and I had so many song ideas. I kind of interviewed these lyrics with several versions of some of the songs. And for a while, this Taffy lyrics lived on the melody of another song that's on the album. And it wasn't until I was able to step back and be like, oh, now it's far too serious of a song. I need a much peppier, fun, melody to go along with this. I don't want to be so, dour and dirgy. So I kind of erased that and just kind of sat down at the keyboard. And with that kind of rhythmic cadence that I was always reciting the lyrics to, I just kind of tried to make it as simple and catchy as possible lyrically, because I'm sure, sometimes I have a tendency to overdo it and make things really, heavy and drawn out or, just big. And I just wanted this one to be as close as I could to like a 1950s, kind of Elvis-y song, just kind of extra catchy, really kind of standard chord progressions and all that. So I was very happy, and it didn't come across trite. I was worried it would if I stayed with, kind of a 3 to 4 chord, style. But I was very pleased, and it immediately was something that just I kept singing over and over. So I was like, okay, if I think it's catchy, then hopefully other people will too. And from there, I created a rough demo using a bad computerized version of a clavinet. In my mind, I was like, I want to use a clavinet. I really want to, because I was going for this whole like late 70s, early 80s sound. I don't have a clavinet on hand, but I was like, well, GarageBand had one, and it was really bad sounding, but I kind of based the idea of the sound on that fictitious, instrument that I knew maybe one day I would get my hands on, and maybe one day I wouldn't.
I've still got the imprints left from your last bite. I'm trying to carry on and let it heal despite the fact that I can't get away, and you're eyeing me at night. You're not worth the energy.
So yeah, the song started out using this kind of bow, 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 bow. I just kind of played that. And that was kind of the basis for the whole song. Was that that rhythmic clavinet sound. Man, I tell you, it's like when you get a real one of those, it just changes your life as a keyboard player, because it's like the closest you can get to playing like funk guitar on a keyboard. It actually plucks strings like a guitar. And I was just going to rent one for one day and go to the studio the day that we recorded the album. And my producer was like, "Oh, I've got a friend that's got one in the closet. I bet he'll let us rent it for like $100 for a couple weeks." That couple weeks ended up being like 8 months, so I had this thing at my apartment just sitting here, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and I just kind of plastered every song with clavinet after that, because I was just like, it's sitting here, it sounds so good, So, but yeah, it was this song that kind of somehow ended up dictating the clav throughout the entire album, because I wasn't planning on having it so prevalent throughout the rest of the songs, but it's such a fun instrument, and especially when you turn on a little bit of phase and a little bit of, chorus. When we recorded the album, we recorded all the tracks live, but we did 5. I guess we did like side A, one day at the studio, and then we did side B like 3 months later. So we would rehearse those 5 songs back to back with the band, with the drummer, the bassist, the guitarist, me, and the keyboard. I was playing keyboard, and I hadn't yet grabbed the clav yet. I hadn't gotten it from that guy. So when we did these first 5, I didn't have it. So I just kind of played some rhythmic kind of staccato keyboard sound, knowing that I was going to replace the clav with it. The latter 5 songs, the clav was the instrument I took to the studio that day.
I've still got the imprints left from your last bite. I'm trying to carry on, let it heal despite the fact that I can't get away, and you're eyeing me at night. You're not with the energy.
So I think it's probably a lot. It probably ended up on those more often. But yeah, this one was kind of I had to step back from it afterwards, because my guitarist did not like his guitar part that he put down on it initially. So he just kind of said, "Hey, let's just not worry about that right now." So I went home with the stems of, bass, guitar, drums, and me, and started to think about what I could do with it, because without the guitar, it was very open at the beginning. So I just started putting a lot of extra synths on it, because I felt it was just empty, and I was kind of lost what to do with it until the second verse, when I get that kind of that kind of 80s square wave synth coming in, that ooh, doo, 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 that part. So that once that happens, I knew where the song was going. But for the first verse, I didn't know what to do. So that's why I sent along those demos or in the in progress version, so you could hear like my attempts at trying to fill dead space, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so it wasn't until like when Jay finally gave me the guitar part that he had wanted to perfect, which is just a perfect little 80s guitar chug. I had all these extra parts that I had written. So I was like, oh, I will just, kind of seed them throughout the song. So I'm kind of happy that he didn't have a finished part for me, because it really made me struggle to create some kind of unique parts that I would not have done otherwise. And at one point, I had been listening to a lot of early, kind of late 60s stuff, kind of Burt Bacharach stuff, and just kind of, wall of sound stuff. And I was really liking the idea of like heavy strings that had been reverbed to death, kind of off in the distance, kind of creating this other texture that, you could pair with all the 80s synths. So if you had this kind of, like 1960 sound paired with the 1980 sound, it might be a very fun marriage. So that's where the orchestra stuff came in. I had both my producer's brother and our friend that is she's a violinist. I'd had them play some of the parts I've been working on, and I had them play it over and over and over and over. And it was just too much, and I like I said, this song was the hardest for me to kind of nail down the direction it was going in, because I didn't have that guitar part. And I'm kind of glad I didn't have it, because it, like I said, it really forced my brain to work overtime. But, once I got the guitar part, then I had these orchestra things and the glockenspiel and all that stuff in there playing at the same time. We all realized, like, this is way too much going on. Pare it down into the right pockets. So I was very happy with how that turned out. It was all accidental.
But accidental in a good way.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, when I was listening to all the stuff that I was getting for you, all the stems, I heard all these parts I hadn't heard in like 2 years, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great part. But it doesn't serve the song. It was just a great part. And so you have to divorce yourself from loving a part that might not be great for your song. It's like if you buy a lot of great furniture and wallpaper for your living room, you can't force it all in there just because it's all great. You have to start to decorate at some point. And that's why I'm always happy to have a second or third person stick their head in and be like, yeah, it's too busy, take this stuff out. I throw everything in. I do, because I get so excited about a new song when it's being recorded, about the possibilities of where it could go. Ultimately, this song ended up going exactly where it started, with a demo based on a clavinet. But there was a period of time when it was just all crazy Moog sounds and knobs going, just I had it going like crazy electronic, and I loved it, but it stuck out like a sore thumb on the album. It was just like, it's like somebody got an Atari game and just like, recorded all the sounds and we just threw them on that track. And it sounded really cool, but not in, not in the whole of the album. So I think to pare it down and turn it into, it is essentially the guitar rocker on the album. And guitar rocker is I'm using that term very lightly since most of my songs are, overly orchestrated and, keyboard centric. So it was a fun song for me that way. And I'd be like, "Hey, I brought eight backing vocal tracks," and he'd look at me like, "We don't need 8 backing vocal tracks," But I was like, I would have so much fun, right? Like once I kind of realized that I was going for this 1960s sound with this, I was like, I've got to build the Supremes. I've got to be the Supremes and Diana Ross, but the Supremes and all their friends. So I just kept singing, and I don't sing high that well, and I got really good at doing falsetto, backing vocals and stuff like that. So once I kind of, I guess, hit that hurdle or jumped over that hurdle, I was like, ooh, I can do this. I can go really, woo, that type of stuff. And I just kept doing it. And that's why I think that there were so many backing vocals, because of the fear of not knowing if I was good at doing that yet. Like not really, being great at singing that high. So I would sing it twice on one note, sing it twice on a second note, so it's probably only a 4 or 3-part harmony, but I'm singing it, double for each note, because it was an insecurity, but what it ended up doing was creating a really big wall of backing vocals, which I think sound great on their own. I just love to listen to them, and it's not because I love to hear myself sing. It's got nothing to do like that. It's because I just think it's so cool to hear stuff like that. I wish all songs came with the option of turning off the vocals and the instruments, because I think backing vocals are sometimes some of the coolest things to hear in a song.
And now, listen to Taffy by Derek Bishop in full.
I've still got the imprints left from your last bite. I'm trying to carry on and let it heal despite the fact that I can't get away. And you're eyeing me at night. You're not with the energy. Still I got to fight. Pull in all directions, yet I don't get a say. When I speak my mind, it doesn't matter anyway. Sing it as a blessing to be needed every day. Needlessly distressing to just get on your way. Go
Thank you for listening to episode 1 of Staccato Cast. You can find out about Derek Bishop at derekbishop.net, and you can keep up with all my latest discoveries over at higherplanemusic.com. Until next time, take care and keep that beat going.